We are coming to our next member of Tribunal, who is also a member of the UK Parliament, Richard Burgon. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. From its inception, modern colonialism and imperialism arrived dripping in blood, violence and slaughter. From the wiping out of millions of the original inhabitants of what is now Latin America, to the slave trade and the later carving up of Africa, profit has been squeezed drop by drop out of human suffering. Later, empire took new forms as the United States became the most powerful nation on earth, and which Martin Luther King described as, and I quote, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, a remark he made about the Vietnam War that left millions of Vietnamese dead. But a remark that could have been made about the 2003 Iraq War, which left many, many hundreds of thousands dead. Of course, that war was part of a new era of conquest for oil and control across the Middle East, which 10 years ago also led to the seldom discussed US-led invasion of Libya, which Barack Obama once boasted deposed a despot at the cost of less than what we spent in 2 weeks in Iraq. But the human cost was much greater for the Libyan people. Libya's human development indices, once the highest in the region, have collapsed. Human trafficking networks thrive in the anarchy as warring factions vie for control of the economy. Slavery markets have appeared where black people are sold to the highest bidder to work in factories. As one account in Time magazine described, by the time his Libyan captors branded his face, Sunday Cabarot had already run away twice and had been sold 3 times. The gnarled scar that covers most of the left side of his face appears to show a crude number 3. His jailer carved it into his cheek with a fire-heated knife, cutting and cauterizing at the same time. This is the Libya of 2021, not 1821. So where are the trials of those who organised these wars, embarked upon as they were with complete contempt for international law? Where is the justice for these victims of 21st century slavery? And today, where is the justice for those being deliberately starved to death in Yemen by that most loyal Western ally, Saudi Arabia? That war has already caused nearly 250,000 deaths, and that includes 130,000 deaths from indirect causes such as lack of food, as Saudi Arabia uses hunger as a weapon of war alongside the arms sold to them from the West. Yet the United States, despite talk from Biden about breaking with some of Trump and Obama's backing for this Saudi war, still refuses to demand an immediate end to the Saudi blockade of Yemen. And regrettably, Britain, along with the United States, has been involved in too many unjust wars in recent years. Wars of conquest, for control, for oil. Much of what we know about these crimes was exposed by the fearless work of a journalist whose award-winning journalism was carried out here in Britain. A journalist who has exposed unlawful killing. A journalist who exposed US rendition and the crimes of Guantanamo Bay. A journalist who is now held in a UK high-security prison solely because of his journalism. What an indictment of the world that we live in, where those who pursue wars are decorated and celebrated, whilst those who expose war crimes face extradition to the United States and the rest of their life behind bars in a super maximum security prison. The world needs more Julian Assanges. The world needs more Edward Snowdens. The world needs more of the fearless journalism of Wikileaks. Because, as Julian himself once remarked, if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth.
It was a very difficult afternoon in the courtroom, primarily because this was so absurd, because the lawyers for the United States were basically relitigating the case from the magistrate court, cherry-picking from the testimonies, taking it out of context. And to give you the gist of it, they were spending hours and hours trying to tear apart the testimony, the chief testimony of the psychiatrist who was Julian's witness in the magistrate court, attacking the integrity of distinguished professor here in the United Kingdom who has decades of experience. It was depressing. It was depressing to hear constant references to the fact that Julian would not be a suicide risk because he would be able to resist the urge to commit a suicide. Again and again, all these references to that, it is not something you want to sit for hours and hours and listen to. And what is depressing was the fact that they were actually using Stella and the children as an argument that he would not commit suicide, because they said, well, the theory is if you have a family network, you will not commit suicide. But what happens if you have that network and you are confronted with the fact that you're going to be deprived of seeing your partner and your children for the rest of your life? I have children. I can put myself in that position. You can as well. That is absurd to maintain such a thing. But we heard all the very meager and empty arguments, the so-called assurances by the US lawyers. That was the end of it today. Tomorrow we will hear the testimony that will matter from Julian's lawyers, all the arguments that actually are so overwhelming, overriding, that it's impossible for the judges in this court to do anything but uphold the decision of Judge Baratzer in the magistrate court. All the illegality, the CIA plans to kidnap or kill Julian Assange, the key witness in the indictment that has recounted the testimony. This legal case has no leg to stand on. And on top of that, what remains, of course, is the absurdity that a publisher and a journalist is on trial and facing 175 years in prison for doing his job as a journalist, exposing the truth.